universities, which is very much based on preservation, conservation, based on retrieving elements of the culture which was almost destroyed in those 4 years of 75 to 79. So you have a culture which almost collapsed with 1.6 million people who were incarcerated, killed because they are political prisoners, including people who are intellectuals, artists. So you have the entire intellectual girth of a culture that's been destroyed. And how do we as artists collaborate with the young people there? So the idea of alternative universities, Alter U, is a process of sustainability where we are working with local communities and the local site, local memory, and very much trying to, in a sense, lead to discussion, dialogue, conversation. And I think that when I was preparing for this, now I do this very often. I go into Wikipedia, right, and I just look very quickly at this word sustainability. And I was very excited to find one phrase which talked about how sustainability is a call for action, and it's about ultimately a dialogue of values. And I think that this is what is very, very present when we talk about Asia-European understandings of sustainability. And in this dialogue together, there is a dialogue of different values. And of course, the dialogue between the local and the international. So this work, which we are involved in as a group of artists, we have worked in a number of different towns in Southeast Asia. So in Luang Prabang in Laos, where we worked with reviving a performance, and it has become a way for young people to actually make a living, involved in ecotourism and involved in actually retrieving parts of the heritage and making sense of it, connecting to the elders. And this whole process of trying to make sense of a continuum between the past and the future, and trying to make sense right now in Cambodia, for example, where the trials is going on now. So the trials, which in a sense is a parallel to the Nuremberg trials or the Frankfurt trials, and a lot of the young people are not interested in it. They don't go, and in fact I was passing around stickers to some of my friends, and these stickers say in both English and Cambodian, I support the KR trials, the Khmer Rouge trials, because they have found that it is actually almost impossible to generate interest amongst the young generation who did not live through the war. And in that sense, there is very little reconciliation with the past. So it's like a gash. People have different memories of it, or they have no memories of it. And part of our work as international artists is that we are working very locally there over a sustained period of time, and we bring different methods of perceiving the archive, different strategies of working with memory. And for example, with this group of young people, it's about 20 people, and we are involved in about a 6-month-long conversation. And these 20 people come from fields of journalism, anthropology, architecture. They were involved in making projects about gender equality, about public spaces in Phnom Penh, about the trial, about fashion, about songs and dances of the Khmer Rouge regime, about identity markers, about rock and roll. And this is a very interesting, I would say, example of how we were working. For example, we started off by asking the young people to go into these archives and to actively use them. So what one group of 2 or 3 young people did was that they went into the early films of Cambodia, which is around the 50s and the 60s, and these films show a kind of a lifestyle of the rich and famous. It was made by the king, the former king Sihanouk. And in a way, they are scenes of rock and roll, of young people, of a certain culture, which actually was completely destroyed and lost. And it was actually the gulf which separated the classes, which resulted in Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge wanting to return Cambodia to year zero, to return the people to an agrarian future. And it was very interesting going to the trial with these fragments of the archives and using them, harnessing them as conversations, as beginning points of conversations with the people who were at the trial. So an example would be like the young people were using these fragments and they talk to the people at the trial and they say, do you remember this? And of course these are the older people who are now in their 50s and 60s, and they talk about, yes, this was the dances for the rich people. And through the course of the conversations, we begin to unpack a little bit the history of class and also the revolution which happened in Cambodia in those years. But more importantly, I